Hello, everyone. You can hear me well. Thank you very much for coming, first of all. And since we are very short on time, just if you guys, after the presentation, if you guys want to reach out about the presentation, about me, about Hypernode, about whatever, just feel free to reach out. I'm available. I'm going to be here the whole day, most probably in the Hypernode booth or in the technical track or in the after party or in the after party. Okay. So let's get into it. Today, I'm going to share with all of you some of the insights that I have learned from running and hosting thousands of Magento shops. But first of all, who am I? My name is Alejandro. I'm a software engineer at Hypernode. Hypernode is a managed hosting provider that has been hosting e-commerce platforms like Magento for the past 20 years. What I do at Hypernode is develop APIs, automation tooling, and infrastructure for developers and merchants to run the shops smoothly. We are based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and as of today, we host over 90% of all Dutch Magento web shops. We are used in over 30 countries, and we're growing quickly, especially in the UK. We don't see ourselves as just a hosting company, but as an active part of the Magento community, connecting developers, merchants, agencies to empower the ecosystem. Over the past years, we have worked closely with merchants and developers. And one thing is clear, Magento is powerful, but running it well can be hard. Slow page loads, caching gone wrong, broken deployments, you name it. Quick show of hands. Who in this room has ever asked, my Magento shop is down. Why is my shop down? Okay, I'm gonna ask a bit louder because don't be shy. Even I'm raising the hand. Okay, who here has ever asked themselves, why is my shop down? Okay, much better. Don't be shy. The rest, I guess, they must be Magento experts or they remove that trauma out of their heads. But just to let you know, you're not alone. You're not alone. Running Magento well can be hard, as I mentioned. And in this talk, I'm gonna give you some of the common pain points that I have seen from Magento in the infrastructure side. And I will also share some of the most practical solutions that we have used to fix them. But first, let's start with the most common complaint we ever hear. Why is my shop so slow? You will be surprised to hear how many merchants run their shop without any caching enabled. And even when caching is enabled, it is often misconfigured or not optimized for Magento. Magento is powerful, but that comes with complexity. Every request loads multiple PHP files, runs dozens of queries, and triggers a lot of internal logic. Without any caching in place, even a simple page load can feel very slow. So let's take a quick look how Magento's caching works out of the box. By default, Magento writes sessions and cache data on disk, which might be fine for a small shop. But input-output operations on disk are very slow. So every time a customer visits a shop, Magento has to read, look up, and write files on disk. That might be quicker than running the entire application and queries, but not the most efficient one, especially on cloud servers that are typically attached to cloud disks, which are fast for networks, but all these lookup and writes, they will bottleneck your application. Also, as the number of files grow, your processes will slow down. And there is also a risk of your disk getting filled. So instead of relying on disk-based caching, we recommend to use in-memory databases like Valkey, Redis. These systems, they store data directly in RAM memory, which is much faster and also closer to the CPU. So when a customer visits a shop, Magento doesn't need to write a file anymore. Everything is stored directly on memory. Also, something to note is that memory is volatile. So if your server is restarted, your memory will be wiped. So it's quite important that if you use Valkey or Redis, that you configure your persistence at least on production nodes. And as session and cache are centralized in memory, that will be essential for whenever you want to scale your Magento across multiple servers. But I will talk about that later. Okay, now your session and cache are in memory. Good job. But we can still optimize Magento's full page cache. For that, we recommend to use an HTTP cache like Varnish in front of Magento. Varnish can serve fully rendered HTML pages directly in memory by passing Magento, PHP, and the database, which makes it much quicker. Recently, Dutch agency Elgentos, a partner of Hypernode, organized a deep dive between the Magento and Varnish integration, together with experts from Hufa, Varnish, Hypernode, and others. They came up with a simplified and modernized extension from this integration. They work on common pain points, like, for example, the back page now loads instantly, or like the marketing parameters can be managed through the admin panel, among other things. So if you're already using Varnish with Magento, you should definitely check this out. PHP by default, on every request, needs to compile and execute code, which wastes the CPU cycles. PHP extension opcache can help with this by compiling the code once and then storing this in memory, and then later it just reuses it. So for Hypernode customers, we do this out of the box, but for everyone else, we recommend to set your opcache settings to allow it to handle 60,000 PHP files, which is enough for Magento, to disable modification and consistency checks because you're not going to be changing your code between deployments, and to enable it for CLI for any background processes. But you should also invalidate the cache after every deploy because the modification checks are disabled. Okay, cache is in place. Now let's talk about another pain point that I've seen a lot. How many times I've seen that deployments are being handled on Magento. So this is a very common script that I've seen in Magento deployments, but it is also a recipe for downtime. Why? You enable maintenance mode, and suddenly you have all these slow and heavy processes. And then if something goes bad halfway, your site will be stuck in maintenance mode. And also you won't have any easy way to roll back. We recommend a safer approach. Build everything first, and only when everything is ready, switch to production. Processes like composer install, build dependency injection, build static content are meant to build your application, not really to serve real-life traffic. So maybe you should ask yourself, okay, do I really want these processes in my production environment? And on top of that, they're slow and memory hungry. So better approach, offload them to your CI/CD pipelines. Build them there, test them, and only when everything is ready, deploy the artifact to production. That will be safer, quicker, and more reliable. Symlink-based deployments are an easy way to achieve zero downtime and faster rollback for deployments. How does that work? For every new release, you can create a new build in a different folder. In this example, we just do it incrementally by numbers, but you can put dates, you can do it in a different way. And then your web server, Nginx or Apache, you can point it to a specific directory, and that directory can be a symbolic link to the newest release folder. And then if you want to roll back to a past release, the only thing you need to do is flip back that symbolic link to a past release. No rebuilds, no drama. And there are a lot of tools out there that already handle these principles. For example, you have Deployer. Deployer already automates building remotely, symlinking, and rollback if needed. At Hypernode, we also build Hypernode Deploy. Hypernode Deploy is built on top of Deployer, and it is Git integrated. It supports zero downtime, but it is also more tailored to Magento and also to the infrastructure of our customers, which makes it very easy for our customers to create deployment scripts in as little as 5 lines of code. Okay, caching is solid. Now your deployments are also reliable. And good news, your shop is growing. But now, any minute of downtime will cost you money. At first, scaling is easy. You can put more CPU, more RAM, faster disk. That is vertical scaling. But at some moment, you will hit the limits. Database locks, CPU contention, single point of failure. If uptime is critical for your business, you cannot rely on a single machine. So first step for scaling smarter, decouple your database. Magento is database heavy. Lots of product data, lots of orders, lots of sessions. If you put PHP and MySQL in the same server, they will start competing for resources. A database backup, a slow query, that can bottleneck your application. So offload your database somewhere else to improve stability and offload, to isolate the load, sorry. Magento can also be media heavy, especially on shops that have a lot of products or shops where customers can upload their own designs, for example. And as media piles up, your backups will also become slower. You will also clutter the application layer and it won't scale. So we recommend to put your media in an object storage. That will keep the media and the code cleanly separated. One thing to note is that Magento does support object storage, but there are a lot of custom modules that assume that media lives on disk. So it is important that you test that carefully if you really want to go on this way. Okay, so now it's the moment to add more servers to your application. But before that, we need to take care of a few things. We need to make sure that the load balancer is in place to distribute the traffic throughout the multiple servers. We also need to make sure that the cron jobs are only running in one server to avoid duplicate jobs. And as I mentioned earlier, a centralized session cache and object storage will help you to have your media and state decoupled. And now let's talk about traffic, because not all traffic is good, especially when it comes to bots. Because even legit bots like Google Bot and Bing Bot can damage your application. Magento is dynamic, and even like crawling pages like the search page with layer navigation can trigger heavy operations. And now there's a new wave of bots, the AI bots, GPT bot, Cloud bot, ByteSpider, and those are coming more aggressively. And they don't crawl for SEO nor ranking. They crawl for content, most often to train their models. So there are traditional ways to communicate to the bots to tell them to control their behavior. The most traditional way is robots.txt, which is a file that you can put at the root of your application. And in this file, you can tell bots to not index your site or to not index specific pages. Or you can also add a crawl delay to tell the bots to index you, but in a slow pace. Also in HTML, you have tags, meta tags like no index and no follow. With no index, you basically communicate to the bots, hey, don't index this page. And with no follow, you communicate to not index the links on that page. And of course, these are best practices. Most search engine bots respect it, but not all bots play nice. For example, Amazon declares on the documentation that they don't support crawl delay in robots.txt, nor the meta tags, no index, and no follow. This is a real-world example where GPT-bot crawl with over 30 terabytes of bandwidth within a month to this site owner, costing him money and bringing no value. So what to do? If bots are burning your bandwidth, evaluate, analyze, and take some action. So first step, go to your Nginx or Apache logs and find this user agent. And if a bot is clearly abusive and on top of that doesn't bring any value to your shop, just block it. In this example, this is an Nginx directive. We identify the bot and we just block it directly. Nginx, well, doing it on Nginx or Apache can be a quick and effective solution to mitigate traffic, and it's instant, like robots.txt also. Of course, not all bots are bad. So maybe GPT is like crawling quite hard on your shop and it's affecting your performance, but you still want to appear on ChatGPT because everyone is using ChatGPT these days. So what can we do? We can, instead of blocking these bots, we can throttle them. In this example, we identify the bot. We rate limit the bot to 1 request per second. And if the bot surpasses that, we return a 429 error, which means too many requests. And this will communicate to the bot, hey, slow down, take it easy. And the bot will understand that you will still be indexed, don't worry. It will just communicate to the bot to take it easy and to not go too hard on your shop. Another strategy is to block where you don't serve. Let's say you have a Sunday roast kits in the UK that you're delivering to the UK, and suddenly you get a lot of traffic from somewhere else with a lot of user agents and IPs. That's the moment that you should ask yourself, do I really need that traffic? But of course you need to be pragmatic, because if you don't serve, if your customers are not in the USA, you don't want to block USA if you still want to be indexed by Google. So be smart about where is your market, but also which bots will give you value. And search pages. Bots like to crawl every possible filter combination, every corner of everything. And in this example, we identify the bot. We identify the request URL parameters. If both conditions are met, we raise a 410 error, which means gone. This will communicate the bots to not index those pages anymore. Sometimes you update your Magento, your PHP, your MySQL, and suddenly you start to get a lot of non-critical warnings. Logs pile up, but no matter how performant or how scaled your shop is, if your disk gets filled, your shops will go down. Rotate your logs. At Hypernode, we do this automatically, but if you manage your own stack, use something like log rotate. Set your retention limits and monitor your disk space. Merchants and developers, pretty often, they don't have access to the production environment, which makes sense for security. But sometimes you want them to have the visibility. And for them to be able to troubleshoot or to optimize, it is important that they have a shared dashboard where you can see the logs, Magento logs, Nginx, etc. At Hypernode, we have Hypernode Insights that delivers server and application metrics in real time. But if you manage your own stack, you can do something like Sentry, Grafana, Prometheus. These tools are easy to set up and they will give you a lot of insight. Shared infrastructure, having staging and production in the same server, having multiple shops in the same server might sound efficient or cost efficient, but it can also be problematic. You share PHP, Redis, memory, CPU, and if one breaks, it might break also your production environment. Don't let the shared infrastructure break your production. And backups, we all know it. It's important. 3 to 1, offsite, all that. But you'll be surprised how many developers know their system so well, but they don't know the process to restore a backup from their system. Aim for simplicity, reliability, and flexibility. For example, at Hypernode, we have a CLI wrapper where a customer can easily restore an entire server or a file from a specific snapshot. So aim for simplicity, because in panic times, complexity will be your enemy. And I think the most powerful insight that I've learned from hosting Magento shops is that you're not alone. When something breaks in your application, chances are someone has already faced it. A developer reports a bug, someone builds a fix, that gets shared, and suddenly hundreds of others benefit from it. And that is the beautiful part of this ecosystem. We share the pains and the solutions. And that is what makes Magento ecosystem so strong. Not the code, nor the platform, but the community. I'm proud to be part of a community that shares, supports, and grows together. And Magento's future depends on that. If we want it to thrive, we all need to give back. That could mean sharing an experience, an article, a fix, or so. So running Magento well takes a full ecosystem of tools, tips, and shared experiences. At Hypernode, we support thousands of Magento shops. Support also means guidance. We know what breaks, what scales, and what works. From Hufa to Sansec and beyond. Everything we build is shaped by that. We aim for simplicity, uptime, and speed. Not just for performance, but to support the people behind the platforms. If there's one thing I want you to remember, is that Magento works well because we work together. Every fix, every GitHub issue, it all adds up. So either whether you're writing a module, sharing your experience, or even being here, remember that you guys are contributing to something bigger. Thank you for being part of it, and thank you for listening.